Are we good? Excellent. Let's give him a hand. I'll have you guys introduce yourself.
Hi, is this working? Hi, I'm Jean Barker. I'm the writer-director.
I'm Seth Ganji, the producer.
I'm Christian Vieira, one of the other producers.
So for you in the audience and for the people watching, one reason we do these is to encourage audience members and actors to create their own work by having filmmakers tell their journey of making their own films. And every film starts with a story and a script, so you want to start there and how that happened?
Yeah, my mother has this pathological fear of old age homes, and we had this huge fight once while going to visit a friend of hers. And the story basically came from there. It's about her spirit and about how she would probably react if something like this happened to her. I set it in the future simply to give myself more freedom and to be able to say, tell a larger story.
And then we talked a little bit about in the writing, you were in school, so did you have a budget in mind? Did you know already like facilities, how that was going to work out? Or were you like, I'm just going to write it and then tweak it once I know what I can get?
Yeah, I had a smaller budget in mind. Everyone I spoke to told me this would cost much more than it did in the end because I have such amazing producers. Yeah, there were a lot of changes along the way. Obviously, with locations, we considered at some point shooting it in a motel, shooting it in the present end, getting rid of the sci-fi aspect. Lots of different things like that came up. But we were very lucky that the University of San Diego helped us out with the exterior location, and from there, everything else was developed from that.
And then obviously it takes a team, so how did then you guys get connected and how do you guys know each other and kind of talk about building that kind of producer team?
So Jean and I had worked earlier on a couple smaller projects in our first and second year, and then basically this was the thesis film that we had to do in our third year in our graduate degree at Chapman. So I think around Jan was when the three of us spoke up basically collaborating for this project, and then she really shaped the story, and in May was when we thought, okay, let's do this. And it was always story, so it was never about seeing what locations we can get. And then after the story was finalized, then basically it took us 3 months. We shot this in October, and everything came together in 3 months. So it was a lot of hard work from a lot of our team members. Everyone really stepped up to the plate. I think that's what makes good movies, just people you can trust and a really good team.
And then Christian, for your guys' conversation, was it splitting up certain jobs or just like tackling one thing at a time? How did you guys kind of split up the workload?
Well, I think one of the really fortunate things about Sid and I working together is that we've worked on a lot of projects, and we kind of have a flow of, okay, you're going to tackle this, I'll tackle that kind of thing. But we work really well. We try to stay connected with each other about these are the issues we're facing right now that we need to solve. Because what it really boils down to, like our job basically is we're problem solvers. So you have a movie, and how do you make it? And you start putting the pieces together. And so Sid and I work really well together, being able to figure out those pieces and how to get them together to maximize the Jean's story the best we can.
These producers were both amazing with story. They read every draft as well. They were so supportive. And, you often hear of film teams fighting about people sort of passing blame around. This never happens with these guys. They still work together, and I still work with them.
Oh.
Jean's very kind.
Jean had a lot of drafts. When she said we read every one of them, there was a lot of drafts.
Which is a great segue because I was about to ask how many drafts, but how long was the writing process?
There were so many drafts of this that I have a habit of making lots of drafts. Like there's a new draft for everything. So there were so many drafts that I was doing 16.6 by the time we finished. At one point I just called it 17 and that was it. Then we shot it.
I think to Jean's credit though, that she's a very, very hard worker, very driven director. And if feedback can come from all over, and so she's willing to hear anyone and take that feedback and try and implement it if she can. And so that's why there are so many drafts, because she's willing to put that time to really try and make the best story she can. So I think that's to her credit.
That's great. That's great. So then once you had that final 17 draft ish, and you guys were getting into that kind of pre-production mode, what's the first thing? Can I walk us a laundry list of the things to tackle? Those are the first thing. Like, was locations for the first thing, or was it talent that you guys feel like you need to kind of walk us through those beginning stages?
Yeah, trying to think back, because we shot this. We started developing it back in I guess it was 2013 now. And it kind of, throughout the summer from May to throughout July and August, a lot of it was just, okay, let's focus on getting this story to a place that we're all really happy with, that we think we can really tell well. And from there, it becomes a process of, okay, so what are the different elements we're going to need? Obviously, we're doing sci-fi, so we're going to need to put together a production team that is going to be able to help supplement that by creating this entirely new world, basically. And there's a lot of time is devoted to finding the right production designer and then the construction crew, because we pretty much built that whole set ourselves in a warehouse. We moved it onto a stage at Chapman, and so there was a lot of logistically figuring out, okay, this is what we need to do when we shoot in October. So a movie's basically mostly made in pre-production. If you do your pre-production well, then your shooting should go smoothly. That's at least the goal you should be having, and that's what Sid and I always aim for. So each day was a different problem. We have casting, we have production design. We have to figure out all the locations. We went and looked at a bunch of locations around here. So each day presented its own challenges, but you sort of come up with a list of what you want to tackle, one by one, and what the priorities are.
And in that process, did you raise money? Did you already have that kind of money idea figured out to build those sets and everything? Kind of how was that process along that lines?
Yeah, we got some money from the school and from the Friedman, what's it called again? The Leo Friedman grant, sorry, I should remember that. Some of the money came from me, some of the money came from the DP. And yeah, we did run a Kickstarter campaign as well. So there was a whole lot of elements that came into it. I think a lot of the money was money saved. I mean, Christian built a lot of the sets.
I have some construction background, so
Nice.
I was willing to lend a hand. And I think that's one of the things also that we like, Sid and I, we don't want to necessarily just be pigeonholed as producers. If we can help anyone, we're going to help them. So, and if we can help save costs by assisting in that manner, we're going to do that too.
Absolutely. And then as you were kind of getting your department heads together, the production team, obviously the DP and everything, was this people that you guys all knew or friends of friends? Kind of how did you kind of build that team out?
I mean, we had all worked with each other in different capacities.
Yeah.
It was the first time we were working with this DP, but then he was just great in every aspect. And I think it slowly came together in May and June. And then I think once more elements started adding in, like the casting, once John Hood came on board. Like, for example, earlier when the story was still being shared, we had a lot of resistance from the administration because it's very ambitious on a low budget. Yeah. It was, can you pull this off in an effective manner where you really convey the story in its true manner? But then once, I guess, they saw that our team is so strong and we could pull it off, they started supporting us more, and that's why we had, I guess, the ability to raise more funds. And in turn, it kind of like all complements each other. Yeah. So I think the casting helped, and I mean, he just felt, I mean, you can tell the story of how John Hood came on board.
Yeah, we had an amazing casting director, Kathleen McGowan, who's an actress herself and a SAG member, of course. She brought in some great people, including Adair Jamison, who's the lead, who plays Chloe. And we were very lucky that Adair just happened to be very good friends with John Hood. They'd been in films before. So she got him the script, and luckily we had a script that was ready. So it was one of those classic combinations of luck and preparedness. And yeah, so that's how that happened. Yeah.
He just said, I want it. We made it happen.
Nice. And then in that process, kind of where were you guys at? By the time you were casting, was that kind of pre-production set? Was that kind of one of the last things you did? Was it kind of early in the process? What was just kind of a little bit of a rough timeline?
It was all happening at the same time, honestly. Yeah, that's why it was great to have two producers as well. And they had, a lot of the other producers at the school were also helping out with stuff. So
talk a little bit about that, because sometimes, especially maybe actors who are doing their first film, think they can also produce and be, one of only two producers, and the director and the writer and the editor. Talk about how important it is to have that team together, multiple producers there and everything.
Well, I like to live my life by saying that teamwork makes the dream work, and I can tell you that it absolutely rings true in the film industry, because it's a team effort. It is so hard. There's so much that's going on that you need people who are focused and specialized in certain areas to help complement the whole team, so you can build it all out and you can accomplish all the goals that you're setting out for. And we're very fortunate that we have a lot of very highly talented filmmakers and talent, and cinematographers, and all kinds of different emphasis at Chapman that we all really work well together, and we're all a group of friends that we all want to help each other succeed. So there's that kind of that great sort of like team player mentality that I think at Chapman that we really were able to take advantage of to really help us move forward.
Talk, as you're moving into production, was there rehearsals? Was there, like, did you just shoot dates? How many were there? Stuff like that.
You know, usually I rehearse. In this case, I actually didn't. We had a very exhaustive casting process, though. We did a lot of matching, a lot of, compatibility reads and that sort of thing. So I used the casting process to actually rehearse to some extent, and then we just shot it. I mean, I think the actors were so strong that it really helped me. We did quite a few takes of some things, but no, we didn't rehearse. We talked a lot. We met. We spoke about stuff, but I wanted to keep it a little bit fresher. I think in the past I may have over-rehearsed, and it's not a play; it's a film. So.
In terms of production, the way the system is set up is every thesis film has dates allotted from the get-go. Oh. So we knew going in that we only had these 2 weeks to shoot, of which you have 4 days of off, so it's 10 shooting days. So that's why we stressed on the pre-production being so important, because there was no margin for error. If we're not prepared, we still have those 10 days to shoot in, because everyone's shooting the next 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it was 10 shooting days. It was really hectic with so many locations, and I guess like while one team is shooting in San Diego, the other team is building a setup. We move in, someone else is building something else. So it was a little crazy, but I guess we're just fortunate. Yeah, like Christian said, a really good team, and everything was no real problems that arose. It was very small and it was solved really quickly.
We had, I'm kind of hoping you can't tell, but we had a sound stage which wouldn't allow us to build everything that you see, obviously. So what we were doing was we're building one room and then striking it and then building another. And then also those, walkthroughs that you see in the corridor, it's actually all happening in a corridor from here to the end of the aisle. We're just flipping the line all over the place. And this film was a very good exercise in learning the line. So a lot of it's trickery and, quick turnaround and people working overnight to build stuff. So
then to make that happen, how many people did you have on board to change sets? And like that sounds like a good sized crew for a short film.
Not enough. We didn't have enough.
The 3 of us. And I was painting sets the night before we started shooting.
I mean, yeah, we had. We wish we could have had more hands for sure. We made it work. Definitely. But we really only had, maybe 3 people working at one time.
We had 3 dedicated on the art team.
Wow.
And then everyone else was just jumping in and helping out whenever possible. Because we had to prepare that in 3 days. That's it. So that was the time we were given. And then with the whole development of not getting the bigger 5,000 square feet stage, but the 2,500 square feet, basically a room like this. But then I guess we just problem solvers, just worked really hard and got it up and running.
That's amazing, guys. We're going to jump back a little bit to casting and then move back into production. You talked about a lot of rehearsals and casting. What was that process like for you? Was it? It's always a question behind the scenes of how do you know that actor is the right actor? What was that process for you?
There were quite a few people who might have been the right actor in a different way, and I think that's the kind of heartbreaking thing about casting is that you come across so many really talented, really amazing people, and they just all have a different effect on the film. And what you ultimately have to decide is not who's better or worse, but who you want to represent. Who fits what you're trying to say. And that also changes during casting to some extent. You realize different possibilities that you didn't see in the beginning. And I mean, I definitely, while, doing the compatibility reads and stuff like that, I rewrote the script again. You hear it come out of people's mouths and it sounds different to how it does when it's all in your head. So.
And then what were some things that the actors did well in the room that made your job easier to cast?
Some of the most important things, knowing the stress that everyone's going to be under, is just how somebody is when they're not actually standing up and auditioning. How nice they are about waiting. Because that they're going to be how kind of nice they were to other actors while auditioning with them. You know, there were a couple of people who auditioned for Chloe who were kind of mean to the other actor, and it was like, if you like that now, what's it going to be like when we're on set and you're tired? You know, so a lot of it was just looking for people that you feel love the project. You know, care about it as much as you do. I think actors are the people who you really need to be. You need to be aligned with. So a lot of it was looking for that. That's my major thing. There were a lot of very people who really brought the script alive, and I was looking for people who could sort of have fun with the idea of being romantically involved and who could remember that feeling. So that was also something that was really key, and I learned a lot about what it's like to be 80 and in love through the process.
Jumping back into the production stuff, it's interesting that you guys have that kind of close date, 2 weeks. So in that, how did plans change for you guys? You're like, okay, we're going to do this on this day, but because of this, we have to change things around, or maybe something didn't get built, or location had to be tweaked. Kind of behind the scenes, how did that kind of work for you guys?
Well, I guess, you know, one thing that about Chapman is you go into the fall semester that year and you don't quite know when you're going to be filming yet. And so the semester starts end of August. And so that's a pretty close to when we could have been shooting if we didn't realize what our actual slot was going to be until the school year started. So you get told, yeah, you guys are going to go, first out of all the other thesis films. It's like, okay, well, we know our dates are here. Do any of the locations that we're already looking at, do they work for that? So it creates, it's nice in that it gives you sort of this finite, our film has to be done in this time, but then you also have to figure out, well, how does everything else that we've been working on for this whole summer fit into that, and does it still fit? So it's one of those things that it makes sense efficiency-wise for the school, but it puts some constraints on us when we're trying to put all the production elements together.
How about for you as a director? Was there things behind the scenes where you're like, oh, if you knew about this, or the dog stopped barking, or you know what I mean? If the hallway thing, was there things where you're like, okay, this is what it took to make this shot happen?
Yeah, I mean, mostly I'm thinking about, a lot of things involving the sets and having to flip them and that kind of thing. That was a major thing. Also, that the final scene where they're riding in the car, there were some things which we didn't expect to be as difficult. The car's wheels, the tire went flat, so it was supposed to go a lot faster than it did. We had to end up playing it for comedy because it just went so slowly with a flat tire. Luckily, the actors were willing to drive it anyway. But yeah, so this car is not going very fast. It has a flat tire, and the DP's riding in the back, and I'm kind of running behind them, going, don't shoot, avoid that building. We don't want to see that building. That's 2014, and it's there's some situations like that where that peaceful scene was actually a nightmare when we were shooting it, and really. And the sun's setting. And everyone's hot and tired, and the crew's wandering around in the forest somewhere. It's like. So that shot I remember very well that day.
I mean, the funny thing was, so the tire went flat that day. It was day 5, and day 6 we were going to take the golf cart to San Diego, and that was the first shot. So it was after set, it was the two of us trying to fix this tire, get a replacement, and then put it on a truck and move it. So things like that happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, now looking back at it, we look back at it fondly. It all worked out.
Yeah.
I mean, everything kind of stood up.
The crew decided to use the golf cart as a vehicle to transport the equipment as well, and broke part of it. So.
That's what low budgets do.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like it's creative. Your guys' job as producers are just creative as the directors and the writers and the actors. It's all about just being in the moment and solving all plans.
Yeah, I mean, our job is to help and support everyone else on the team, especially the director, especially in this case, director, writer. But our job is to help, support everyone else. So they need something, can we do it? And if we can't, what are some other options? So it's never, we don't ever just want to come to into a discussion and be like, no, we can't do that. Like, well, let's talk about it. Like, figure out what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to tell visually here? And what are some alternatives to it? So for us, it's, we want to be creatively involved, and we try to stay creatively involved. But our main goal every time is we all are here to make this movie. So that's what we're all pushing towards, no matter what the problem is.
That's awesome. We always end on a kind of nugget of advice type of ideas. So as director and writer, for the first-time director-writers out there, what would be your nugget of advice? And then also for producers, for first-time producers out there, what would be your advice in making a short film? We'll start here.
Expect a lot from yourself. Don't think that this is my first time, this can be whatever. Look for the best actor that you can find. Work with people that you're sure that you love. Try and demand that you do the best, and at the same time be very humble, because you'll never really know anything. That's how I feel. I feel like I'll never really know enough.
I think she summed that up really well. I mean, I would say, I think treat people the people you work with, especially with respect that they deserve, and don't get bogged down by problems, because they come up every time. And if you put in the work, people see that and notice that, and people will put in the work, and you'll be appreciated.
I think for anyone who might be thinking about producing, or first-time producers, like I said before, everything is a problem. How do you solve it? That's all that a movie is. A movie is a big problem, a big puzzle you're putting together. And I would say you can negotiate everything. Like, locations, equipment rentals, crew members, whatever it is, everything can always be talked out. You don't just take no for an answer. Try and find out what that other person, what is important to them, and how you can help supplement it in some way. Because everything's negotiable. So just keep that in mind.
I think that's a great place to end. Let's give him a hand and say thank you.